as a youth, and I first got into metal, being a massive fan of horror movies, and I thought that the two went very much hand in hand. I got into Ozzy, King Diamond, Slayer, Maiden, anything with like some over-the-top aesthetic, and I really liked the performance value of that, and the fact that it was overboard. Venom were another band, mysterious bands like Bathory and Celtic Frost that were very much underground, and we've lost that now because of the advent of social media. It's kind of taken all the mysticism out of music. You can find out who everybody is, just at the drop of a hat. But that's what appealed to me. And I think when you start a band, you always have this image in your head of playing in front of thousands. You never have this image of yourself going, I'm going to be in a band, and picture yourself playing in front of a dog and, one person. So, yeah, I think that was the catalyst, was I had this overactive imagination, and just took it from there. And fortunately, eventually it all panned out the way I imagined it. Except I was a lot beefier and and taller and more handsome in my dreams. Well, I think we just pilfered, or pilfered sounds much better than stole, especially to a policeman. The best aspects of the things we grew up with. So the theatrics and the dark elements, the occult references, combining them with soundtracks as well. Soundtracks are like my favourite thing. I think I listen to soundtracks more than I do metal, just because I do a lot of writing and I can't listen to anything with people shouting in my ear or singing, or words in fact, when I'm writing. Yeah, we combined all those elements, cherry-picked if you will, and just made our own sort of bastardised version of that. And then this whole second wave of black metal came along, and I guess we were kind of carried along with that as well, although being from England, we were separated from mainland Europe and the majority of the sort of black metal outbreak by a gulf of water, which is the North Sea. And that segregation, I think, eventually did us wonders as a band, because it kept us separate, elitist, original, he says, having just said that we pilfered lots of ideas from other people. I think it appeals to anybody, to be honest. I mean, isn't that the whole reason why action movies and Netflix and, escapism in general is prevalent amongst people? Because it's things that they can view from afar and feel safe in the comfort of their own homes. Much like metal, people come along to the gigs, they see something, glorious and violent and noisy, and then they can retreat and go back to their own lives. Again, escapism, the initial attraction for us as well. I mean, it's like the Jesus shirt. I just call it Jesus. The Jesus shirt. I mean, that's why it's still popular today. I mean, Kanye West and people like that have been seen in them, and there's been a recent spate of people getting in trouble, like the woman in New Zealand who, ironically, they were showing it as part of a contemporary art or something, and she didn't want people to see it, so she spray painted the glass so people couldn't see it, and thus brought further attention to the shirt because it made the front pages. So yeah, I think that's something else that people are attracted to as well. It's just larger than life. Things like that. It started off as, rather than a satanic thing, it was more anarchic. It was, I guess, in response to growing up with a predominantly Christian background. And it was never too bad for me, but I know a lot of people that it was, very stifling, and, people forced to go to communion and church, and, it obviously was worse for a lot of people in America, especially the Bible Belt and whatever. So, yeah, it was an anarchic statement more than satanic. And when we came up with it, we were laughing our asses off. We thought it was hilarious. And I think it still is hilarious. It was a different front pin at first. Originally, it was my ex-wife was on the front. But eventually, the artist who did the first load of our album covers, Nigel Wingrove, he supplied us with an image which we called Vestal Masturbation, which we thought was quite apt with the back print. But yeah, I mean, that shirt in itself is now 30 years old, and I think it's just growing in popularity. The Lord Provost of Glasgow, which I presume is something ecumenical. I don't know what provost is. I thought it was a body part. He branded it sick and offensive, and that was just the quotes. We used it everywhere. Sick and offensive. You know, if Lord Provost of Glasgow says that, and I think we're doing the right thing. I think people like being scared. But I wouldn't say, I don't want, if people don't understand the band, I don't want them thinking that we were just like this shock rock band, because that's far from the truth. I think, obviously, Jesus shirt has overshadowed everything, merchandise-wise, just because by nature of people's reaction to it and, you know, the sensitivity to the wording. But for one of those shirts, there's a dozen other shirts that are very sort of classically minded, you know, in art form. A lot of our earlier artwork involved the female form as sort of canvas for creation. And we worked with a lot of, saying that we still do, work with a lot of famous artists that venerate the female form and use that as the basis for their art. And I think usually when people get into heavy metal, it's around puberty. I don't know why. I don't know. There's got to be a book there somewhere. I think, you know, the naked form at that particular point in your life is terrifying enough. So I think that would probably add to it as well, on top of everything else that the band stands for. I mean, if you're going to have someone pull this apart like a psychologist, they would, you know, probably say, well, you know, and it's probably true. The older you get, the more, you know, you have less time for practicing witchcraft and doing stupid things. You have life lessons, you know, you stop drinking. As you get older, you have more responsibilities, you become a parent, you know, you have the things that you know, pretty much grind everybody's lives down. You know, the weight of the world crushing your spirit and all that. And when you're a kid, you know, you've got the whole vista of life ahead of you. And so stupid things, stupid acts kind of go unnoticed in your everyday life. I think we've matured a lot. Musically, no. Mentally, no. But the outlook of the band and the necessities of the band, making sure that it, without going into all the stuff that destroys bands financially, yeah, you have to bend, you know, to be successful and the longevity of a career, you have to have, like, you need to think about what you're doing. And when you start off, you don't really think about it, you know. I could give a, you know, huge catalogue of bad things that we've done, broken, and, you know, over the years. But, you know, that changes. I think that changes for a lot of bands. We've had a lot of people, parents actually, come to us and said, thank you for saving my, you know, child's, not life as such, but the direction in life, because they found our music, they pursued reading a lot of classical material and got involved in that and found something to latch onto. Good things, as opposed to saying violence and death and horror and stuff like that. I mean, that's a cool pastime. We have a lot to offer still. This year, for example, we're busy writing an album, but we're on the road. We've got like another 100 shows. Last year, we thought we'd dispensed with all that. We thought we'd done our part of the Cryptoria Arna World Tour, which is our last record. And then we got a new management company in the Oracle Management, which is actually Wednesday 13's management as well. And yeah, the whole rigmarole started again and everything's picked up. And we're all very excited about writing new material. We've got some great ideas. So yeah, with that in mind, we've got a huge amount to explore. The three events always seem to revolve. I mean, there's been great things like, you know, like we headlined the B stage at the American Ozfest for 10 weeks. That was great. But I think it's always been bad things. It's always been, for example, when we were on our first record label, they were awful, like literally awful. They didn't pay us properly, and it fractured the band. The band split in half. Literally 3 members stayed on and took the record company to court, and 3 people just left and just thought, right, well, we'll leave them to it and we'll go and start our own band. And we persevered, And that was a well fought court case. We won eventually, having lived on the breadline for like 18 months. And that was a catalyst, like I say, to throw us into the next stage of the band. And that's happened a couple of times along the lines where we've had the band fracture. It's only made us stronger. So I think Sony was another thing as well. We signed to Sony, and we knew, everybody forewarned us, you're signing to a major, they don't know what they're going to do to you, you know what I mean? They've got no idea how to handle a band like you. But we were like, yeah, we know, but it's like, we see the gold glimmering through the door. We know it's going to be, good for a while. And it was good for a while, it was great. The very good thing was that when they did finally take the person who signed us and moved into another job in another country, so the person that replaced him had no idea what to do with us, because it was all about Jamiroquai at the time, and bands of that ilk. We were just allowed to walk free of the label, so walk straight into another deal with Roadrunner, so that was another good thing. But we took their money, which was a lot, and enjoyed ourselves with it. And in fact, we first thing we did was hire a 101-piece orchestra, which is the Hungarian, was it Radio and Film Orchestra? And then everybody was expecting, all our fans expected us to be the Backstreet Boys, now that we were signed to Sony. And we did completely the opposite. We did an album that was literally falling off the CD because it was so long and so convoluted and, so orchestral. And so, yeah, I think what we like doing is like surprising people and doing things our own way. But yeah, 3 things will always be, I guess, bad things that motivated the band, because I always say, you don't really know as a person how, until your back's against the wall, how you can react to that, how strong you can be. And I think that's what saved our band. Everybody reacts to the music differently. It'd be good if people, and they have, got into the aesthetics, the topics and the themes and the literature and the art and that the band venerates and the band encapsulates in their music. If they could take a piece of that and the scent of it and, the theme of it and let that colour their lives a little bit, that's cool as well. Usually the question is posed, what advice would you give to a fledgling band? And instantly, without even thinking, which generally I do most of the time, is say just give up. Because I think there's just too many bands at the moment, and the state of the current music scene is absolutely, sodden. There's too many bands polluting the metal highway just because you can just do an album in your bedroom, and people do. So I think if you're going to start a band, you really need to have an aesthetic that's going to be totally original. And if I was going to do a band from scratch, I would do a video straight away. I wouldn't even bother, well, obviously I'd bother with a demo because I need the song for the video, but I'd go for a video straight away, and something very eye-catching. Because I think nowadays people just don't have the tolerance for, they want everything immediate. Everything's disposable. I was horrified to find that all the albums I bought my daughter went unopened, and that she was just like listening to one song from this band, one song from that band. And I think that's what kids do nowadays. There's some great bands. I don't know if they have that aesthetic. There's bands that I really like that I think are very different and on the up. Alcest, a band called Then Comes Silence, who have that very 80s goth aesthetic about them, but very rocky, and I could see them being huge. But then there's bands that play pubs, you think, why aren't this band huge? But it's because nobody knows who the hell they are. This band, Craft, I wore the shirt just for that. Craft, a great band, album of last year for me. But no one as such, if people are looking, and I think people are, they're looking, Slayer, they're getting to that age where they're not going to do full tours and that. I think they're looking for bands to come up and fill that space. And I don't know if there are any bands that are going to be at the sort of cusp of festival lineups. They're going to have to, I think there's going to be one of those things where a record label will make another band, make another Bring Me the Horizon, make another Slayer, make something contemporary, make something for the kids that they're going to lap up. Because I can't really see anything. I mean, Ghost, I think, were the last band that came up from the ranks. You know, like how you browse through Amazon and it recommends stuff. I got recommended this Ghost album and I looked at it. It was the original album and I was like, wow, that's really good. And it said like King Diamond and I was hooked and I saw the cover. I ordered it and then went on tour. And then it was Christmas and then went on tour again. So I didn't get to actually opening it under my pile of bills that accumulated till like April. So it was like 6 months later. And I played it and I was like, man, this is amazing. This band's going to be huge. And I rang all my friends up and I said, you got to check this band out. And they're like, yeah, we know. They're everywhere. And it literally, that was it, 6 months from their debut album coming into my hands until, which, you know, wasn't far after its release. And then they were huge. But they've got something that they've borrowed from everybody else as well, you know? There's a bit of Kiss, there's a bit of, well, lots of King Diamond, Blue Oyster Cult, Sabbath, and they've got the aesthetics. I'd even go as far as to say ABBA. You know, I think they've got a huge dose of ABBA there, which is a good thing. I like Ghost.
Sure. Beyond the aesthetic, beyond the music even, when people experience Cradle of Filth, the entire career, what do you want them to take away from your body of work?
As much merchandise as possible. As much as their parents can afford. Yeah, I reckon.